Hello, and welcome back to the Sound of Breaking Glass. I'm your host, Christina, and I'm so excited to be kicking off season 3 with a conversation that's deeply personal, beautifully honest, and the perfect reminder of why I started this podcast in the very first place. My guest today is Dorota Cloke, a certified nutritionist, fasting expert, and the founder of Feel Human. We recorded this episode a few months ago, and yet everything we spoke about still feels incredibly relevant, if not even more so. We talk about hormones, healing, and the emotional layers behind fasting and body awareness, but we also dive deep into Dorota's journey of grief, growth, and building a purpose-led business from the inside out. If you're on your own journey of transition, coming home to yourself, or just trying to build something that actually feels like you, then this episode is for you.
The main driver was my dad and his journey through chemotherapy. It was something that I was never ever this sure about my future ever before in my life. And I really had this calling that I needed to help people because I could see so many of my friends struggling with their health and complaining about things that are actually easily reversed and fixed.
Hi, Dorota. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, Chrissy. Good. How are you?
Very well, indeed. Enjoying the sunshine that we get. It is September for our listeners who might be listening to that a little bit later in the year. So certainly enjoying the Indian summer. And as our listeners might know, we've just been chatting about what you've just finished, which is a 72-hour fast.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. That's really exciting. Yeah, 72-hour fast. I finished last night. And so this is something that I do. I've been doing for the last 4 years. I started a community called Global Fast back in April 2020 when the world was upside down. And we have this amazing community of people who fast every 2 months for 3 days. And we do it in the name of health, name of longevity. And anyone can join. It's a global sort of community, global fast. We do it online. We have our WhatsApp group, chat. And the main thing for me is not to fast smarter, not harder. And there is a various list of hacks and things to implement to make the fast easier. And the most important thing is preparation for it, support and guidance throughout the 3-day fast and integration post-fast.
So it sounds like there's a lot of science behind it. And we'll get a little bit more into the secrets of fasting. But the important question is, for those who may not know, how come fasting and what does that have to do with health? And how did you get, in the very first place, into the whole new business that you've now set up called Feel Human? And I wanted to ask you that question because why is it that we don't feel human and why is that so important to you? How did that come up?
Yeah, so let me take a few steps back. So Feel Human is the name of my business. I'm a nutritionist, a biohacker, and a fasting expert. And so how it started, it's kind of I feel like it's been bubbling somewhere behind the scenes throughout my whole life. I'm Polish, born and raised in Poland, and how people in the 80s were born and raised in Poland, everything was around by, natural living, natural sort of like produce and things you eat, very simple. And how I become a nutritionist was to do with my dad. So my dad had leukemia for about 12 years. And we've been battling it with him, supporting him throughout this whole process of conventional medicine treatment. And we quickly kind of realized that to help him go through the chemotherapies was to change his lifestyle and diet. So me and my mom and my sister were doing all sorts of research in terms of like how nutrition, how food can support your body in battling the disease. And it was all about cold pressed juices, turmeric, all the supplements, you name it, all the things that are actually known to support your health. But it was very interesting to deal with doctors at that time, and they were very, very skeptical. They're rolling their eyes and they would say, oh yeah, of course, this is going to help. But we said, I was very open with them and I said, listen, if this is not going to interfere with actual medicine, we will continue to do what we're doing. And over the years of dealing with the doctors, they slowly started to kind of have their open mind to it. And towards the end of my dad's life, they were open to CBD oil for, pain and relaxation. What I've learned through this whole process, doctors are amazing at treating broken arm and, helping with the cancer. Weirdly, they don't look at the human body as a whole holistic thing. For example, my dad was on every single antibiotic in the world known because they were trying to fight his infection. And then when I suggested to them, hey, how about we give him probiotics? They're like, oh no, we don't do that. So if there is a problem with your blood, why are you not looking at other things? So that made me realize that I really wanted to understand how human body works and understand how nutrition and lifestyle and external environments contribute to our health or disease. It was 5 years ago when I realized I had this huge kind of epiphany moment. I remember it very well. It was my birthday. I went for lunch with my husband and I said to him, I was like, oh my God, I really need to quit my job. I really need to quit my job and I have to heal the world. I had this message from the universe that I had to heal the world and make people realize that what they eat affects their cells and bodies. And my career prior to my epiphany moment was always around food. I was in food industry, running and operating restaurants. So that's what I did. I found a course that gave me qualification as a nutritionist. I received my diploma in March 2020. But over the years, as I approached the path to wellness, and it's just the most incredible last 4 years of my life. The doors that opened up, the possibilities that I could do in order to help people and make them feel human. It's just absolutely incredible.
And I'm sure you've never looked back, but honestly, there's so many things you shared there that we have to unpack. And I'm trying to make sure that we go step by step and one by one. But I think the important thing I suppose to highlight, even when we spoke with you prior to recording this interview, is that nobody's questioning traditional medicine. And we're not saying that it's not helpful. And we know how hard these doctors work and the constraints that they have to work with. But at the same time, the reality is, and we've had other guests on the show who've hit the nail on the head, as we like to say, it's especially for women, and I'm sure for men as well to an extent, for chronic conditions, things that there's no quick fix and are very clear, this is the cause, this is the solution, one way suits all sort of treatment. There's many issues, female hormone balance related issues that are just not cured in the traditional way. I think many of us have gotten frustrated whenever we've gone through something, whether it's because of, it could be anything from miscarriages, thyroid conditions, gut health, irritable bowel syndrome. I don't think I have a female friend who hasn't had one of those at some point or other in her life. So is that really what motivated you? And is that the most common concerns that your clients now come to you when they look for help in nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was creating my own niche in nutrition, women health become very apparent. And I completely agree with all the things you said. So many women struggle with their health and mental health, gut health, and all the things that you've mentioned just now. And we don't know what the problem is because, well, one thing, doctors don't even know what the problem is with women because women are not studied in research programs. So that is the problem because I think it was don't quote me on that, but it's something really crazy. Like up until the 70s, I think women were never a subject to medicinal research because women are a risky subject because we can get pregnant at any time. Fluctuating hormones are still a huge mystery to a lot of professionals. And we are being prescribed medication that was tested on men. Another thing is with women, we are so hard on ourselves. We try to achieve everything, because this is how the society shaped everyone, right? Women can have it all. You have to compete with male counterparts in the workplace. You never get paid the same amount of money. You go on go and have children, and that is that is a problem as well. There are so many factors that affect our mental health and our health in general. But I have discovered this incredible tool that is our cycle. And as as long as we are in tune with our cycle, we can do so many amazing things.
And this is one of my favorite topics, and it always comes up with all of my guests. And we talk about it, and we had Dr. Movina Bakmanski, who is a clinically trained psychologist, and she went through her whole personal story of dealing with autoimmune conditions. And while she's not a doctor, she's a psychologist. She talked about it from the psychological angle that you just touched upon. And I think it's so important to, again, be a bit more generous and graceful with ourselves and respect the cycle and not try to push our bodies. And it's funny, you try to explain this to a man, and I had that very recently with my own one. I was like, I can't do this now. Maybe I can do it in 2 weeks because I'm going to be in a better energetic state. And he was like, what do you mean? Can't do it now. You can't do it. No, I honestly mean that. I think it was something really silly. I think it was about doing ice. You go to the sauna, you get really hot, and then you get in ice cold water.
Yeah,
I can do it in certain weeks, and others I can't. If I don't want to get that cold in my body. I know it sounds weird to you, but to me it makes perfect sense. I don't know. People might think I'm crazy now, but I think there's something to be said. And I also have other friends who say I have different routines. I'm working out in different ways in the weeks. Prior my cycle and after, you know, so I'm sure that has to be the case with nutrition. And I think I've heard also about something around seeds, and that there's different seeds that you can eat around different points of the cycle. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So seed cycling, it's something, it's a real thing, and it actually is so powerful, and it's such a simple thing that you do. So you seed cycle, you use pumpkin seeds and flax seeds in the first 2 weeks after your period. So it's follicular phase. So you have a tablespoon of each, 1 tablespoon of pumpkin seed, 1 flax seed daily, mix it with your porridge, yogurt, salad.
Do they have to be freshly ground? Because I feel that some people say don't buy the prepackaged, pre-ground stuff.
Yeah, so pumpkin seeds not necessarily, but flaxseed definitely freshly ground. And when you grind it, keep it in the fridge because they will go rancid if they are kept on the counter, because they have those powerful oils in them. So refrigerate them. Consume that for the first 2 weeks of your follicular phase. After ovulation, we enter luteal phase. And then we switch our seeds to sunflower and sesame seeds. Exactly the same thing, 1 tablespoon of each. And then that balances our hormones. And what I mean by balancing our hormones, it's so to explain quickly how our cycle works. So we have our period. That's the day 1 of the cycle. You feel really energized. You can really push your workouts, have really difficult conversations at home with your husband or your partner, that kind of thing. And that's where estrogen drives us. And then we enter ovulation. This is when you release your pheromones, and you feel attractive. Your skin changes as well. This is the time to go and have networking events and social events. Then we go down to luteal phase, which is where estrogen should be going down and progesterone is starting to produce. However, this is not always happening with women because we tend to have estrogen dominance in our body. And I'm not sure if you've heard of that phrase. I'm sure you have.
Please, you have to tell us more about this, because this is so common, I feel, because of all the other chemicals that we have surrounding us in our environments now.
It's huge. So as a woman, estrogen dominance is when estrogen doesn't leave our body, doesn't detoxify itself. So a lot of people don't understand that hormones are cyclical as well, and we literally shed them out. We excrete them through our liver. And if our liver is blocked, estrogen won't be passing through it as easily as it should. And when it's not excreted after ovulation, then it gets absorbed back into our bloodstream. And then that creates havoc. So it stays in our body and it doesn't give opportunity for progesterone to rise. And progesterone is our calming hormone. So whenever a woman has huge PMS problems, PCOS, anything related to sexual hormones, it's the disbalance between the hormones. So, it's understanding how our individual cycle works and working towards optimizing the right time during that month is absolutely crucial. It's so powerful.
So yes, there's definitely a connection between, again, psychology, nutrition, your overall health. And I wonder if you can give us some tips then, or where to start, because I'm sure people are listening to that and saying, well, maybe I have some of that. Maybe that's something that I have to look into. So if you really don't know where to start, what's a sensible approach to take?
Well, number one, with women who is still cycling, track your periods. track your periods. It's number one. And I know it sounds really obvious, but a lot of women don't know when the period was and how long the cycle is and what happens. A lot of them are on a pill or coil or various sort of contraceptives. That also disturbs the natural cycle. But make sure you know exactly how when you start your period, how long is your cycle, and then do the seed cycling. But most importantly, actually, I was actually thinking about that this morning. You look at Instagram and all those health experts and influencers, and they say, do this, 3 things to make you feel better, 5 things to make you, feel amazing. But actually, no one is telling you what not to do. So I would 100% eliminate processed foods and seed oils from your diet. So
what is seed oils for anyone who doesn't know?
So seed oils are all the so-called healthy vegetable oils that we've been told over the years that vegetable oil is good for you, but actually
Would that be olive oil or?
No. So these are things like sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, canola oil, not as popular in this country. So processed food, refined oils. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Refined oils that often
not cold
you see
pressed, refined.
Exactly, and you often see them sitting in supermarket shelves.
They're usually cheaper for a reason.
They're usually cheaper and plastic bottles. But what happens, because they are so heavily chemically processed, those oils, they are not even vegetable oils. So how they are produced, it's like the seed from, let's say, sunflower is squeezed, the oil comes out from it, and then it's just run through enormous number of steps of like
chemical reactions. Yeah,
exactly, bleaching it, stripping it, and at the end of the day you have the product that it's called sunflower oil.
That doesn't sound like what our ancestors were doing, because I'm sure they had some of these oils, but they didn't have the factory with the chemical production line in it.
No, exactly. And what would they do? They would use fat, animal fat, to
think to your grandma or great grandma,
right?
how were they cooking back in Poland or wherever your ancestors might be from?
Absolutely, 100%. Like simple things: butter, animal fat, lard. The olive oils. Olive oil is one of the good examples as well. So remove all those seed oils. And I really encourage everyone to read ingredients really well, because that seed oil, that sunflower oil hides everywhere that's man-made, even in oat milk. Like, oat milk is known as good thing for you, for your health, good thing for environment. But look at the ingredients. 99% of brands out there, and I swear to God, I only found one brand that has only 3 simple ingredients. Everybody else fills it with sunflower oil, numbers, preservatives, and all the things that froth nicely, barista style milks.
Oh yes, I was looking at that actually in the supermarket, and I said, "What is that?" And then I realized I'm paying a lot of money for something that's mostly water with some paste of, I don't know, forgotten even what. And I was like, well, should I just use water then?
I know.
I don't know.
And also another thing about oat milks is like, the quality of oats itself that those companies use. They're huge companies, so obviously they were they'll be watching their profits, and they'll be using the cheapest possible product out there. And oats are heavily sprayed with glyphosate, and that's another endocrine disruptor as well.
Oh yeah. And not just oats, wheat, I think the way we get wheat. And that's why so many people have gluten issues with gluten. Yes. It's not the bread itself. It's just the way. And people say, oh, but my grandma always used to eat bread. And I'm like, yeah, but she grew it herself.
It's actually, this is a very interesting point, because in our, Western world, the actual chemical makeup of gluten, of wheat combination is it's mutated itself over the years, because how we grow it, how the soil is prepared for it, it's very different to what our grandmothers were making and eating, 100%. But oftentimes also, if you go to Italy, for example, and I've heard that a lot from people who are gluten sensitive or have celiac disease, they go to Italy and they eat pasta and nothing happens, because they use different type of grain.
Yes, it's a different process. And again, it depends on where you go, I'm sure. But I think there's something to be said about the way we have food these days in our Western world. But I think it's very easy listening to you for someone to say, oh, it's doom and gloom, and it sounds like there's nothing I can do other than just leave everything and go live in a farm and then start. And everyone knows that that's not just unrealistic, but also extremely, extremely hard. And, we should be grateful that we don't have to spend all of our lives in the field working. It's quite if anyone has farmers in their family, they know it's not easy. But
Yeah. No.
is there some hope, or is there something that we can do that is practical, that's easy, that doesn't mean it's going to have to cost you the world? And, what do you say to people who are ready to give up?
Yes, no, it is overwhelming. You get those contradictive messages, and it's, you end up being so confused, as you say, like, what do I do, right? Well, number one, I would say remove anything that is not natural for you. So, all the ultra processed foods, the seed oils, remove that 100%. Make sure you check your detergents, check your cleaning products at home, things that you put on your body, your moisturizers, your face cream, your shampoo.
So what should you be checking? Let's say I have a bunch of moisturizers in my bathroom. What should I be looking out for? Because I have a feeling that it's not always things being disclosed. Yeah.
No, and that's another huge topic as well. I'm not an expert in ingredients for cosmetics, but I would say if you would eat those ingredients that you read on the label, you can definitely put it on your face. So making sure you keep as clean as possible of
the fewer ingredients, the better, it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. And I may sound crazy, but I actually use beef tallow as a moisturizer. There are so many amazing brands out there, and they make really
and
great
your skin looks great
products.
For anyone who's met you in person. This actually works. She's not making it up.
Thank you. Yeah, so like beef tallow, or I use this really cool brand where they use avocado oil and astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is this super high antioxidant that helps us kind of like rejuvenate and educate yourself to live in the modern world, and do things like go to sauna, do your ice plunge, fast
depending on the week of the month.
Depending on the week of the month. Actually, that's a very good point, because fasting is also not advice for women to do all the time. And I always make sure to say that and highlight really strongly: never fast 1 week before your period. Because as I said earlier, that's the time when we need progesterone. So during the fast, you produce ketones, you're in a ketosis state, and that inhibits progesterone from production. So you will cause more damage than good by fasting. So don't fast during that final week before period. And that's the time actually we need more calories per day. I think it's like someone calculated it's like 200 plus calories per day. It's our bodies are telling us, hey, I need more carbohydrates because I need to produce progesterone. By carbohydrates, I don't mean a whole tub of ice cream, but sweet potatoes, starchy vegetables, fruit, that kind of thing.
That's good to share, because I think people can be so black and white. Oh, I never should touch carbs, and sugar is bad, and I should never eat this, and just be so hard on ourselves.
Yes, it's not all bad, and also carbohydrates make us feel good, because carbohydrates support serotonin, and serotonin is our calming happy hormone. But also serotonin is a precursor to melatonin, which helps us sleep. So carbohydrates are often, sometimes when people struggle sleeping, just have a good quality sourdough with butter and honey before you go to bed, and have chamomile tea. Things like that, they will really help you. So yeah, not all carbohydrates are bad. It's when we eat them. It's all about timing. So that's why fasting is so powerful. When you understand how your body works, and you stop eating for 3 days, even for a day, even for 16 hours, you do intermittent fasting. But for a woman, so important, don't do it all the time. Because I see so many women, they are like all for all or nothing, right? I'm just going to be ketogenic. It's like, well, you can't be ketogenic because you will mess up your hormones.
And that is so important. And I want you to tell us about this, because I think I've also heard so many pros and cons for intermittent fasting, but especially for women. I feel that there are some things to think about and pause before you go with that intermittent fasting and being done every day. And so people say, every day I don't eat for 18 hours. And I do this on a regular basis every day, every month.
Yeah, I totally do not support that, do not recommend that, because we as a women, we are cyclical. This is our nature. This is how we are born. So if a woman says, I'm going to do ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting every single day, that is obviously not going to that's going to be in sync with what happens in your hormones. And hormones are so powerful.
We could probably spend a whole day talking about this. And I think that the reality is we've only scratched the surface. And for anyone who needs to know more, there's always ways to find out. As you say, read a lot of information out there, or connect with a qualified nutritionist, speak with your doctor. But I want to go back a little bit to what you do now as a nutritionist, because you mentioned that that's not what you've always done. You started your career in a different place. But maybe let's start with where you are today and what your brand represents and what problem, to put it in those words, you're trying to address for your clients.
Yeah, so I'm a nutritionist and biohacker, as I mentioned, and my business is called Feel Human. And because all the things that I do, they make people feel human again. And so I work with one-to-one clients, I do corporate workshops, and my niche is metabolic health. So metabolic health is something that I am really passionate about, and it's something that we as humans in the modern world forgot how to deal with. So fasting is a big part of the training, the program. It's when we train our bodies to switch between burning fat, glucose to burning fat. It's like a hybrid car, right? You run out of petrol and then you switch to electricity for fuel. Our bodies, we have two types of fuel as well. But because in the modern world we eat too frequently, we shut down all those amazing tools that we have in our bodies as humans. Incredible ways of healing, and it's one of my favorite ones. It's a process called autophagy. It's a word from Latin meaning literally self-eating, autophagy, and that's when our old cells are like recycling into new protein. We all have, they're called senescent cells. So as we go through life, as we age, we store those cells. They no longer serve us well. They've done their job fighting free radicals, inflammation, and they're just being stored periphery of our body. But if we have too many of those cells, then you see chronic diseases. Then people say, oh, I'm 40 plus, then I should be feeling this way.
It only takes to go, I suppose, to the Eastern culture where you see these monks in Tibet. And yes, I know not everyone can be a monk, but they're so flexible and they do so many things in the 80s and 90s. So don't tell me that it's just because of age. It's because you didn't look after your body.
Exactly. So going back to your question, what I do, this is how I want people to be aware of it. Like you have all your tools inside of you. Like you can heal yourself with the right approach and the right guidance. So this is my mission. I'm on a mission to make people feel human again. And why people don't feel human nowadays? Because of the world that we live in. We are not designed to sit in an office chair with artificial light 10 hours a day. We forgot how to connect with nature. And oftentimes those biohacks are free. Go get some sun this morning. I was sun gazing this morning. I was having my bare feet on the grass and, things like that. And journal, put your thoughts out on the paper, do your morning pages first thing you wake up. Remove your screens 2-3 hours before bedtime. Don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. Little things like that. But we forgot how to be with ourselves. We forgot how to be grounded and present because we have so many distractions. We have so many dopamine triggering devices around us.
Yeah, and I really like this point about it being fully accessible, because I think there's been many brands out there and other podcast shows or TV shows that have made feeling good a business, but not in the good way, making it elitist, making it sound like you have to wear a certain brand, buy some extremely expensive supplements, do some really expensive treatments. And, if it helps you and you can afford it, that's great, but it doesn't have to be. And I suppose when you work with your clients, you try to focus on more accessible things by the sound of it and the basics, not just shopping for new devices and supplements.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, those devices are great. They are great add-on. But if you don't have your foundations right, if you don't have your baseline fixed, whatever you spend your money on, whatever gadgets and things, it's not gonna help. Because I always say to clients, we always go for low-hanging fruit. Because I often see, oh, should I have this supplement? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? I was like, no. Let's get it to your foundations first.
Step by step.
And And those things are really simple, like, do you sleep well? How long do you sleep? And, do you hydrate properly? Like, how do you breathe? Do you, what's your self-care routine? And oftentimes people say, well, I don't have time for this.
Well, but you have time to spend 3 hours scrolling on social
Exactly,
media.
right? Yeah.
Which
exactly.
is not, we're not going to judge. We do that ourselves. So, there's no
Yeah,
judgment.
yeah.
And both you and I are present on social media. So but it's just that we actually have a fantastic episode with Vicky Louise of Time Hackers where she says that it's not that you don't have the time. You just chose to spend it in a different way.
Exactly.
There's no such thing as time. Time is fixed. You can't change that. So that's a good reminder. Then again, I'm thinking about another guest, Wendy McCartney, who specializes in preventing burnout after having gone through that herself. She said the same 3 things. Those are the basics. If you don't sleep, you don't eat well, you don't exercise, the foundations of your house is just going to collapse. And that's how burnout starts. But I think that it's really interesting to also go back to before you started doing what you're doing now, because you said that you were working in a different industry. It had something to do with food. And for me, it was also very touching, if you will, when you said, oh, I had this epiphany, and I can see how passionate you are about what you're doing now. So maybe give us a bit of background for how that decision to change lanes happened.
So the decision was, the main driver was my dad and his journey with through chemotherapy. It was so strong, and it was something that I was never ever this sure about my future ever before in my life. And I was like, I had this calling that I needed to help people, because I could see so many of my friends struggling with their health and complaining about things that are actually easily reversed and fixed. And that was my big thing. I enjoyed working in the food business, food industry prior to that. Towards the end of my career, then it was just it became very corporate, and I could see that I wasn't part of that world. This is not my mission on this world. We are born on this planet for a reason, and I'm extremely lucky to find myself in this situation, because not everyone can be so lucky and be like, hey, I'm just going to change my career, in my 40s. Obviously, we all have bills to pay and support our families. But, I had to jump into this unknown. I had amazing support from my husband. And to me, it's so emotional every time we do the fast. And we are just coming to the end of our fast today. And there's this amazing group of people. And people really open up on the chat, and they say really profound things. And I literally cry every 2 months, every time that we come to the end of the fast, because there's so many new people who have experienced fasting for the first time, and they're discovering amazing things about their emotions, their mental health, how they see life. It's quite profound.
Yeah, and I also think back to the beginning of our conversation when you were talking not just about changing your career, but also some of the challenges and not knowing what you were doing in the beginning. And I think that's such a common theme that I think it's important to talk about this, because I'm sure there's others, and myself included, whenever we start new things, there's a lot of fear, there are a lot of emotions, and we always say fear maybe is not a bad thing. It means that you're challenging yourself, you're pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. And you mentioned how you spent ages obsessing over little details that at the end of the day didn't really matter so much. So do you have any tips, or what can we learn from your experience in starting your own business?
Yeah, 100%. It's very common, as you say. Yeah, we go through something, if starting new business, new career. And at the same time, for women, especially, imposter syndrome is so strong. It's like, oh, but I don't think I should be charging my clients for my services, because I just love what I do, and how do I put value to it, right? How do I price my services? That's a very common thing I see from wellness practitioners. Oh, I need another qualification, I need another degree, I need another course. So they are sitting under this illusion of, oh, the more I have on my CV, I then can be ready to go out to market. But no, actually, if you are passionate about what you do and just go for it. Go and seek your clients. Go and seek your people. Networking is really, really powerful. I would highly recommend, if you change your careers, go find your tribe. Find the conferences, find networking events, and that's how you start building your network of people. And it's quite amazing how the universe plants those people in front of you out of the blue. It happens to me so often. It's almost like as if I'm like living in a movie. But to me, it's almost kind of like a confirmation of where I am. Like, I am in the flow of my mission. I know exactly this is what I should be doing. And meeting those people like you, for example, we've met in such an amazing random place, but it was so beautiful. And like we attract each other. And if you have your purpose and if you are aligned with your vision and purpose, you will meet those people on the way, because you shine this energy, this magnetism. All the other people will fall off. And that's another thing as well. When you start something new and you finally are on the right trajectory of your life, you will notice how old relationships are falling off. And often people will be like, oh, you've changed, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. We need to change. But also what I've learned over the last 4 years, that some people who are my friends are no longer giving me the energy that I need. And I also think that comes with age. I'm 44, and it's just so amazing to be in your 40s as a woman, because you become so confident and you just see through bullshit straight away. And you're like, sorry, I don't have time for this.
And you put your boundaries. You're confident in saying no. And even in your 30s, I can already see the difference with being versus being 20, when I was more interested in what people might say or think or how they perceive me. So I think the moment you realize that how others think of you is none of your business, and that you have nothing to prove to anyone.
No, exactly.
Including yourself. It just changes everything.
I know, but also there is an explanation in that. It's to do with our estrogen.
I knew we were going to go back to hormones again. That's a nice way to round the conversation back to hormones.
I know, it's so fascinating though, because when we are in 20s and we are in the prime baby age, our estrogen is at the highest level, and that's a pleasing hormone, right? Like, we want to please people. We have more. We are more resilient. We can take on more. But actually, as we age and our estrogen level like slowly goes down, because eventually we will lose it altogether. Yeah, that's the time when you're just like, sorry, I don't have time for this.
I'd rather be at home with my healthy smoothie and doing my fasting than going out on a Friday night.
Oh my God, 100%.
Well, I think that's going to resonate with the majority of the audience here. I think they are within our target range. And I just enjoyed listening so much to your thoughts on how to build a network. And it's not just about networking, because I think we often think of networking as going and selling yourself and trying really hard and speaking to people that you don't actually want to talk to. And we're not saying that. We're just saying find your tribe, find the people that you naturally connect with, find the people that have the same values as you and maybe the same ambitions. Maybe they're a bit ahead of you in where you want to get, but you can learn from them, and that's great. And it's not about forcing, it's more about attracting. And honestly, I think if anyone had been in the room when you and I met, I can tell you that this biohacking is working, because I immediately noticed that there was something within your general presence in the room that made people want to speak with you. So I can tell to anyone who's listening, it is working. So listen to Dorota.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Dorota. I think we've opened some very interesting topics for our listeners. Yes. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of follow-up on the back of this. But thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge.
My pleasure. It was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
If you're curious about what's happened since we recorded this episode, you're in for a treat. Dorota and I went live on Instagram just this week to reflect on how much has shifted in her business, her mindset, and her purpose since we recorded this back in September of last year. And spoiler alert, a lot has changed. So if you're navigating change yourself, trying to find your rhythm, or just wondering how to build a business that evolves with you, make sure to listen to the next episode in your feed. It's a very special One Bite mini episode where we reflect on that live conversation and share some powerful takeaways that you can apply directly to your own business and your leadership journey. And if you'd like to watch the full live conversation itself, head over to Instagram. You'll find it at lifewelllift.by.hb or at Feel Human Club. Start with one bite, let it land, then watch the full video if you're called to go deeper. See you in the next episode.